A couple of I'd like to get through some of these emails. Michael is quoting Revelation 22:17. The Spirit and the bride say, "Come." Let him that heareth say, "Come." Let him that is athirst come, and whosoever will, let him take of the water of life freely. So that's exactly right. This one is a little different. This is from Rob. Hi to both of you. I listened with interest to your conversation earlier. To some Christians it seems that the Bible has all the answers, all the revelation and prophecies. The Bible is primarily written by men, capital M-E-N. Much of what is written about Jesus was first penned by Paul in his letters, and the words are very much Paul's gospel, although he never actually met Jesus. As for the Gospels, they were orally transmitted until along came the first Gospel to be written, given the name Gospel according to Mark in about 65 AD. When you think the words of Jesus, except for the passion narratives which were penned earlier, were passed on by word of mouth for 35 years or more after the ascension, they were surely open to add-ons and embellishments as to a way with the human condition. So he goes on. Basically what he's saying, written by men, you've claimed today, Julian, that those Gospels are reliable. He's saying, come on, guys, get a life, basically. How do you respond to that?
I've got a life.
Yeah.
It's an everlasting one.
He doesn't say that. I said that.
I know. I'm telling you. There's the knowledge about the Gospels is that Mark was the first one that was written, and it was quite early on, and that it was taken from another document which we don't have. So the general understanding of the Gospel of Mark, which is the first Gospel that the other synoptics have taken their understanding of the Gospels from Mark. Mark apparently has taken his from an earlier document, which is just simply called Q, because nobody has got it. It's not there. I mean, we can say 35 years is enough time to have the doctrine, the teaching, if you like. I'm trying to find the words that I'm trying not to be dogmatic about the words that I'm using, but the teaching that was brought in the Gospels about the life of Jesus, their autobiographies basically, was, what am I trying to say? Oh, if it's only 35 years between the life of Jesus and the writing of Jesus, that's a very short period of time anyway.
And the people were still alive.
The people were still alive. So the word of mouth thing would have been started written down a lot earlier than that. It's just we haven't got the original document that the scholars are telling us that Mark got his writings from and got his understanding of it from. But 35 years is still a very short period of time.
But also, and the other thing about that is Peter, we know, was still alive until, about 65, 70 AD, wasn't it? John was still alive, 90 AD,
90 AD,
whatever. So these people that actually did see these things and hear these things saw these documents written and they agreed with them, and in fact they would have given information, because I mean Mark, they feel a lot of what Mark said, because of the way it's written, was Peter's verbal account, and therefore to say that is not true. What is also interesting, of course, with they say, well, Paul, much of what we have is much of the Paul didn't. Paul brought the spiritual aspect, didn't he? He
brought the teaching of it. This is why Paul was chosen in the first place, to do that, because I mean, here's Paul walking around as a Pharisee, a Jew amongst Jews, with all this incredible knowledge in his mind, having been taught by the top teacher in the whole of Israel about Judaism particularly, and then God comes along on the road to Damascus and says, why are you persecuting me, Paul? You've got it slightly wrong, stop kicking against the goat. And he flicks the switch on. And now Paul can see all this knowledge he's got in his head, which was up to that point was fairly useless to him, was suddenly switched on to him. When we talk about historical documentation, I find it flabbergasting that somebody would say to me, oh, there was 35 years between the happening and the writing down of it. As you say, those people that wrote it down would have been around anyway. 35 years. I'm hoping to be around in 35 years' time. And I'll be in my 70s, but I'll be around.
Right. Yeah.
When I write what happened now down in 30 years' time, what negates it? Nothing negates it.
Absolutely.
It's my experience.
It's
I've written it down.
People write their autobiographies today when they're 60 or 70.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing, of course, is the events that happened back those years. People could go and check those events and look at it, and nobody questions that. And therefore, to question those few years, it is splitting hairs, and we wouldn't bring the same judgment to bear on books that are written today from that point of view.
Plus, we know that what we've got, even when we come to the text of the Word of God, is copies of copies. But there's no other section of society ever in the whole of history that copied the Bible the way the Bible was copied. The Masoretes, the Masoretic text, it was very strict. You weren't even allowed to copy from memory, even though it's been your job for 10 years to copy these teachings and doctrines down. You know it backwards and inside out, but you weren't allowed to do it from memory. You had to look at it, write the word, look at it, write the word. And it was very strict, and nothing in the whole of history has been written down as accurately and copied as accurately as these doctrines.
A lot of people have tried to get through and haven't got through today. I think we're going to have to revisit this next time you're here, Julian, because and probably if we move on a bit, and so next time we'll look at the truth of his death and resurrection, the events around about that time. I know we had other things planned, but I feel because this has sparked so much interest, and I know some of you, sorry if you haven't got through, we've had to stop the calls because got to do a few things before the program finishes. You can contact those who are watching the repeat. You can contact the office. They will give you our number. But as I say, in about 6 to 8 weeks' time, I'll give you some more warning exactly when it is. We'll come back and we'll look at the second part of this, and we'll deal with the truth of Jesus in his death and his resurrection, which of course will sum up some of these things. Julian, thank you for coming. What would you like to say in going?
Thank you for having me. Well, I would express that we need to look into these things. I'm not a learned man. I'm not a...
I can say amen to that.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Yes, I know where you live. I'm not a historian. I'm not a great reader. But if I can get hold of this stuff and understand the historicity of the Bible, then pretty much anybody can. And I extol you. Get hold of it. Go for it. There are several very good books out there. Can I make an advert?
Yes.
There's a guy called Lee Strobel, okay? And this guy was a prize-winning journalist, and his wife became a Christian, and he was pretty disgusted at this, being a hard-bitten journalist, but he went out to investigate it, and he wrote these books. He is now a Christian. He is now born again, because whenever you investigate Jesus, that's going to be the outcome, if you're open and honest about it. These books, he's got a series of books. This one's called The Case for Christ. He's got others, The Case for the Creator and things like that. Brilliant, brilliant insights into the historicity of the whole of the Word of God from cover to cover. Get into it. Have a look at it. It'll challenge you, but it'll encourage you to go on with the Lord as well.
Great, Julian. The music comes.
Bless you.
We go.
Yeah.
Bless you for coming. Thanks very much. A lot of interest today. Thank you for that interest. I say we will come back and pick up the second part in a few weeks' time. Have a great week. The Lord bless you. See you CRE next week and back here 2 weeks' time. Thank you, Julian.